Hi, I'm Dr. Dani, and I want to issue a trigger warning for this particular episode of How Humans Heal because we discuss some stressful experiences, including suicide and suicide ideation, that could be disturbing for some people. If you are experiencing suicidal thoughts or someone you know, I encourage you to immediately call your physician, go to the emergency room, or call the suicide phone hotline in your country. In the United States, you can call or text 988 or the phone number 1-800-273-8255. Thanks so much, and I'm so glad you're here at How Humans Heal. Hi, and welcome to How Humans Heal. I'm Dr. Dani Wilson, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Dani Williamson. She is a family nurse practitioner who transformed really into a functional medicine practitioner, and she has a book called Wild and Well, and she's here today to tell us more about what inspired her to completely go this route of helping people to improve their health using some of the most what you call common sense patterns and lifestyle changes that anyone can implement and can make a huge difference in your health. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I know you're so open about your story and what motivated you. And I really appreciate that because I think that the more as practitioners what I've seen for myself is the more I can share about my story and what motivated me to help others, it's just makes us more real people. And I think that's what everyone needs is just we're all humans. No matter what our training or our background, we're all humans just trying to get through life as healthy as we can. And so I appreciate you sharing your background. But if you don't mind, share with this audience a little more like, what do you think even drew you toward becoming a nurse practitioner, let alone now addressing health from a functional medicine perspective?
Sure. Well, the 2-minute version is I grew up in complete trauma, basically a complete shithole. I tell people that chaos, constant chaos. I had a grandfather that had died by suicide in the front yard, in the driveway, a mom who attempted multiple times, a stepfather that was a child molester. And I had two stepfathers, and the second one almost killed me my senior year, choked me. I had chronic
stress in your childhood.
That's why the whole first part of the book is on adverse childhood experiences, trauma. So I had my first colonoscopy of 4 at age 20. And fast forward, I was suicidal. I was going to die by suicide one morning, and my children ran into the room and stopped me. I was going to drive off into the river, and there was a whole situation. I was in a bad marriage. I lost everything, went on food stamps. I was diagnosed with lupus and fibromyalgia, depression, and chronic itching. And I decided to get divorced. I did not die by suicide. So grateful that day that I did not. And I applied to nursing school on food stamps and a medical card. And I got through school at age 40. I went in at 40, got out at 44, still having all the symptoms, had seen 10 doctors in 44 years. I was 44 years old, working for a functional medicine clinic in Tennessee when I got out of school. And one day, Dr. Kalb looked at me and he said, "Dani, what are you eating? Don't you know your diet controls your symptoms? Do you take digestive enzymes, probiotics? Do you know your food sensitivities?" And it was a little deeper than that. And I said, "Well, no, I don't do any of that. I have no idea what you're talking about. They never taught me this in school, that what's at the end of your fork will heal you or kill you." It's simple and it's complicated as that. And those questions led to a full reversal, Dr. Dani, of 44 years of chronic lifestyle disease. I am living proof that if you weren't born sick, you don't have to live sick. Lifestyle disease.
Everything you've been through.
lifestyle diseases are exactly that. Diseases turned on by your lifestyle and turned off by your lifestyle. High blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, lupus, itching, depression. I mean, there's a million things. Most of us are not born sick. We turn those on and we forget that. So I reversed it. I feel better at 56 years old than I ever did at 46, 44 when he was talking to me. And that's how I've made my mission in life. Because then I got to thinking, I'm not the smartest one. I'm smart. And I got through school and I did all the things. But I've got more common sense than a lot of people. Like, well, this can't be rocket science. I mean, what? So you've got to, so that's how I developed the book and my 6 steps: eat well, sleep well, move well, poop well, de-stress well, and commune well. But even though I was doing that for the last 10 years, I had great success, just like you. People came from all over, still do. But I missed a huge piece of it, the childhood trauma. What happens to you before the age of 18 can set you up, or even after, but, can set you up for a lifetime of chronic disease. And I knew nothing about it. And when I was in school, I was in a good nurse practitioner school.
They didn't even know that.
Zero. Zip.
And it's really well established. I'd love to talk more about the adverse childhood events, or what we call ACE, ACEs. And there's a ton of research that shows that, and there's a high percentage of us who qualify as having experienced ACEs. Not even, you mentioned what your childhood traumas were, but it doesn't have to be that severe, and it still qualifies as affecting your health.
When they did this study, which was 17,000 people, and it's not a perfect study, but it was a big study, and it did not cross all socioeconomic, boundaries or ethnic groups. This was a white upper middle class group, 17,000 in California. But what they discovered discovered from that one study of that population, 64% of those 17,000 people had at least one ACE. And if you had at least one ACE, then you were 50% more likely to have two. 12.5% have 4 or more ACEs. If you have 4 or more adverse events, you have a 20-year shortened lifespan than your colleague sitting next to you who may only have one. 20 years. My score is a 6. Trauma. I was molested. I was beat up. There was divorce. There was mental illness. There were things. There were lots of things.
And this is the thing that if someone's wondering if they qualify, it's if you grew up with a parent or is someone in your household that had mental illness, that qualifies. Also, any kind of abuse, including addiction in the home. Yes. That qualifies.
Insecurity. Somebody went to jail, right? It's physical, emotional. There's no money. You didn't feel safe. Physical abuse. Yeah, there's 10 questions, and this is available to anyone online. You can just Google up. You could probably put it in your show notes.
I'll put it.
The ACE questionnaire link, and we have it in the book, but we don't have that online. But and you can take your score, and so you have to give yourself some grace. And if your healthcare provider is not asking about your childhood, then maybe we need to question, okay, maybe I need a new healthcare provider, because the more I learned about this and the more I learn about this, the better provider I become, because I know, I can't ask this patient to, cut out gluten, dairy, soy, sugar, corn, eggs, peanuts, go move their body, get their sleep, leave their spouse if they're being abused, all these things, if they've got this entire bag of trauma, because the body keeps score, right?
It does have the book, The Body
Dr. Vanderkolk, I've got that book somewhere. I've got right here, but Dr. Vanderkolk wrote the #1 best-selling book, still, like 20 years later, still goes back and forth #1 on the New York Times list.
For trauma. And I agree with you, Dani. And in my book, Master Your Stress, I also talk about ACEs, because it's essential to know. I completely agree. This needs to be in the common medical environment and assessment. And at the same time, I love your impression on this, but what I always like to emphasize is that as much as we know that trauma and stress in our childhood has the potential to affect our health for the rest of our lives. As much as we know that, we also know that there's something you can do about it. It doesn't mean that it's set in stone, right? It's more motivation to do something about it.
No, Dr. Dani, I will never forget that when I was diagnosed with lupus. What? I'm 35 years old. I didn't know anything about lupus. I went to Vanderbilt, which is where I went to school, but everywhere from my hometown, they think Vanderbilt is the top dog, right? I walk in there to the best rheumatologist that my obstetrician found. She puts her hand on that door and she says, Danielle, there's no cure for lupus. It kills women every year.
That's so scary.
Here's your pain medicine. Here's your anti-inflammatories, because it was my joint pain. Oh my gosh, I don't have joint pain at all now. Once I knew my food sensitivities and, took care of some things, no pain. I was horrified. One was Celebrex I was on, and I took that for like 2 days, then found out it was terrible. But that doctor is still there. I saw a patient last year who same doctor, same rheumatologist.
And they said the same thing.
I told her my story and she said, same thing, Dani. There's no cure. There's no cure, Dani.
This is what the conventional medical, when they go to training, this is what they're trained to say. Like, we have to know, like, this is the training they're getting is there is no cure for autoimmunity. You just have to take a medication for pain or for suppressing your immune system, and that's going to be for the rest of your life. And that's the only tools they have, unfortunately, for especially.
Never once. I had 4 colonoscopies with 4 different gastroenterologists. Endoscopy.
Because you have IBS too, right?
Yeah, so that's I was diagnosed with IBS at 20 because I lived in New York City for 3 years. I knew where every public restroom was because I never knew what was going to happen. Do you think those 4 gastroenterologists ever in 24 years ever said to me, Dani, it's not normal to nearly poop your pants every visit. It's not normal to have chronic diarrhea. What are you eating?
Oh my gosh. Of course, I should have been asking about. Isn't it amazing that gastroenterologists don't ask about diet, is what you're saying? Like,
never.
This is about the digestion. Of course it's about the diet.
Yeah. And had they asked, I would have told them, I mean, anything I want, right? I mean, I had no idea that your food could heal you or kill you. I didn't know that food could help you reverse, whatever's happening to you. So all that being said, it's not rocket science. It's easy. It's simple, but it's not necessarily easy. There's a difference, true. Because I really do try to break it down to you got to eat well. And one ingredient food is key. If you're eating processed, packaged, bagged, canned, fake, somebody's food out of a drive-through window where they say, my pleasure, right?
And that's your big red flag.
You are eating fake man-made food and it's killing you, and if you don't think the food industry is about addiction, you are sadly mistaken. It's almost 2:00 in Franklin, Tennessee today, guaranteed around the Chick-fil-A 1 mile from my house. There's a line, and there's a line around it in New York City, Utah, Panama City, I don't know, Philadelphia, because it's about addiction. And
I'm glad you're saying that.
Let me tell you.
We get addicted to foods, right? We get addicted to the gluten, the dairy, the inflammation, all of the inflammatory response.
We sure do. And I pick on Chick-fil-A because I love it. Like if they said you could eat one fast food the rest of your life, that would be it.
You would go.
The grilled chicken sandwich, the grilled chicken took 4 years to develop. 4 years. Now, this needs to be a huge red flag for people. That is a chemistry experiment, as are the biscuits at Cracker Barrel.
It's not just chicken, because if it was just chicken, there's no research that needs to be done. It's just a chicken.
Nothing. There are 51 ingredients in a chicken sandwich at Chick-fil-A. 51. So it's a chemistry experiment. It's a lab experiment, and your kids and your grandkids and you are the lab rats. And I am telling you, you got to follow the money. It is about addiction. And if you drive through any of those places 4 or 5 times a week, you are eating nothing but fake food that is addictive, because nobody's chicken sandwich tastes the same every time you cook it at home. Nobody's biscuits taste the same every time you bake them or look the same. That is fake chemical chemistry experiment food. It's a formula.
No, so I call
we
it toxic
forget that.
food.
We forget that.
It's just like, it's toxic food. Like
it's not food.
It's not even
it's
food. The word food.
As Dr. Mark Hyman, in our tells us, it's Franken food. It's not even food. And so that's the hardest thing for people to wrap their head around, because we are creatures of habit, right? We're creatures of habit.
Whenever we're addicted to something, right? No matter, and this is the thing I realize is a lot of the human experience. Part of being human is we're going to go for things that, especially when we've been stressed humans, we're going to look for substances and activities that help us cope with the stress. But then we're also having to be careful, because we can become addicted to any substance or activity because it has this dopamine effect, right? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about addiction and why. Because once you're addicted, it's hard to get out of it. You can't see clearly.
No, you can't see clearly. And, gluten works on those morphine receptors in your brain. And the second you eat that biscuit, that's why you can eat, I say Cracker Barrel because I'm in the South, but you could be anywhere. You can eat 3 Cracker Barrel biscuits before you ever knew what happened, because it's that dopamine hit. It's that morphine hit on those receptors. And the more you eat, the more you want, and you feel good. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You feel good instantly until you don't. And then you got to have more to keep you going. And it's very difficult. And it's the hardest thing you'll ever do is change what's at the end of your fork, because we eat the same 15 or so foods our entire life. We don't diversify. God made, this is August. There are hundreds of foods out there for us to eat right now, in season and local. And we don't do it. And we feed our children the same 5 or 6 recipes, if we're even using a recipe, their entire lives. We have no diversity in there. And so, but it's about addiction, and we crave it. It's why we pull through, boom, that chicken restaurant or that McDonald's restaurant 4 times a week. And we think our kids can succeed in school on that. It's not food.
It's not food, and it's causing, you and I can talk more about, why is that, it's, first of all, it's hitting the digestion, causing leaky gut and imbalanced gut bacteria and inflammation, which of course sends inflammatory signals. I know in your book you talk about inflammation, and I love that because I love to talk about that too. It's invisible, right? This inflammation is invisible, so it's sneaky. It sneaks up on us, but it shows up with the symptoms throughout our body, right? Like for you, from IBS to lupus, all of that.
That's right. But people don't understand. Yeah, we have acute inflammation. Boom. I cut my finger cutting, tomatoes. That's immediate inflammation. But then you have that chronic, slow, simmering, chronic inflammation that you don't realize year after year piles on. And people don't think, I'm not inflamed. Yeah, you are. Do you have headaches? Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression? Do you have trouble sleeping? Are you insomnia? Can you poop? Can you not poop? Are you pooping too much? Do you have decreased sex drive, right? Do you have high blood pressure, high diabetes? How about joint pain? Anything that ends in itis is inflammation. Arthritis, gastritis, thyroiditis, my specialty, colitis, vasculitis. Yes, you're inflamed. And it's not just food, right? That could be environmental toxins, your phones, your computers, your lotions, your makeup, your hair color, your lipstick. Good Lord, know it, Dr. Dani, the list goes on and on, but you don't realize it until you have a tipping point at one point. And that load, that allostatic load, we call it, right? At some point, boom, we just tip over and you think, oh my gosh, I just got this autoimmune disease, or no, you didn't. This took decades in the making for you to tip over into diabetes or high blood pressure or autoimmune disease. Lupus, it didn't happen. I'm born with lupus. I was diagnosed at 35, but I know where it started. It started in the house when I was a little kid.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
so, inflammation is the devil. And I wrote a whole book, a whole chapter on it, and I talk about it all the time because it is. And when you decrease the inflammation, right, when you begin to heal that leaky gut, guess what else starts to heal? Your anxiety, your depression, your ADD, your children's ADD, ADHD, the bipolar, the schizophrenia, the, trichotillomania where you pull your eyelashes out, OCD. all of those psych issues begin to get better. You heal the gut, you heal the brain. But we need people like you and me out there helping these people, walk this walk, because they don't know where to start.
Well, this is what I was going to say. We're talking about, okay, the foods you're eating are causing inflammation, which is disrupting your health. And you start to go, oh my gosh. But then at the same time, you don't feel good. So making a change can feel overwhelming. Now, you did it though, Dani. I mean,
I did.
You hit a point in your life where you were saying you're suicidal, you're diagnosed with lupus, your marriage is ending, you were hitting rock bottom. And when people hit that, they have a choice, right? Do you give up? Whatever giving up looks like.
That's right.
Giving up looks like suicide, or giving up looks like getting addicted to pain medications, whatever it is. Or you can decide, this is my opportunity to change things. And that's what you did, it sounds like.
I did. It's exactly what I did, and I did it because a family practice doctor looked me square in the eye that day and said, oh, we got to change this. And he also said, if you're going to work here as a nurse practitioner, you're going to walk the walk. You're not going to be seen eating.
Give you a little encouragement there, like, okay, this is.
And let me tell you, I will never go back to how I felt 12 years ago. It irritates the crap out of me that I spent 44 years inflamed and hurting and tired and mean as a hornet and just all the things that everyone, feels. And so I did.
It doesn't have to be that way. It's true. When you're free of it, you look back and you go, I'm never going back there, first of all. Because some people are like, oh, can I just avoid these foods for a little bit? And yes, potentially you could go eat those foods again, but you end up not wanting to. Because
there's not enough gluten in the world to make me go back. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead. I love it.
There's not enough gluten in the world. There's not enough maple Krispy Kreme donuts out there. I'm not going back there. I did eat cheese last weekend. The first time I had cheese on a gluten-free pizza in 6 years, because I was in Italy 6 years ago, and I ate all the pizza. I didn't care over there. I was going to eat anything I wanted to just see how it worked. And I felt great. But last week I ate cheese on a pizza, and I did okay, because you know what? I've spent 12 years working on this. So, it took 44 years to get me in that shape. It's not going to take 44 years to get me out of it, or any of you, but it's going to take time, and it takes commitment, and it takes consistency.
Yeah.
And as women, this, which is my 5th step to healing, de-stress well, we put everyone else first. Mm-hmm. We aren't the head of the household.
That's what we're trained to do.
That's right. We're not the head of the household unless you're me, and you are, because there's no man around. But we set the tone for the entire home, and the mood we're in, the attitude we have when we walk through that door, stressed, mad, overextended, no margin in our life. Right? We set the tone for the entire home, and it's a lot to consider. When I realized that wow. Yeah. How I act walking through that door is exactly what happens to my children.
Yeah.
They pick up on that. So we got to decrease the stress in our lives, and you got to set some margin, and you got to automate, eliminate, delegate. You're the stress master. So this, you got to automate everything you can, eliminate, delegate, say yes to only the most important things. To me, it's not about saying no. It's about what's the best yes.
It's so true. We got to choose, because it's not like we can eliminate all stress, because we want to be alive and thriving and doing what we love and our passion. And there's going to be stress involved. So yes, I love that. It's about which stress do I want to say yes to? And then how do I help myself recover in the process, which is why I love your 6 focus areas. Like these are the keys in my mind. Those are, when we can implement those 6 areas, we're doing stress recovery every day, in the moment, along the way, instead of like saving it up for a vacation or something. It needs to be a daily stress recovery.
Daily. I tell my patients, and I write in my stress chapter, build your world, build your life, build your self-care into your life, into your world, because we may not get to escape, to the beach or to the pedicure or the massage. Build it into your world. It's not easy. I've been a single mom for 22 years. it's about darn near impossible. In fact, I didn't really succeed at it until my kids grew up. But, which is, that's all fine and good, but I wish I would have known when they were younger, and I was irritable and just angry and no margin, no room for error. Right.
Yeah, just every time you bump it. Believe me, I was a single mom too. My daughter's now in college, but same thing, I had that moment in my life where I was like, this is the thing is I grew up knowing that food was important to my health. So I'm grateful that I got that message in childhood.
So lucky.
But I even then went to college and studied nutrition, and I knew I wanted to become a naturopathic doctor right away because I wanted to implement food as medicine. Can you imagine? I realized that at like age 20. I don't even know how that happened by age 20, but I still, Dani, was struggling with severe migraines for years after that. And so just shows you, even though I knew food had to do with my health and I was already trained as a nutritionist and a naturopathic doctor and implementing that, it still took me time. And I think this also comes back to the childhood stress and trauma in our lives, because from my childhood, I still was taught to choose stressful environments, including stressful relationships. And even though I left my marriage when my daughter was young, I still was imprinted, my nervous system imprinted to choose stress. And I had to learn over years and years how to do this self-care in the moment every day, and how to be able to finally solve the migraines. And I too look back and I'm like, I wish I could have done some things differently when my daughter was younger, but we have to also learn to have compassion and forgive ourselves, right?
Give yourself some grace. I say that every day. Give yourself some grace. Give yourself the grace you would give your best friend or your sister or whomever, struggling. And we don't do that. It's so important. It's key, but it's real difficult. So it's when you're under that kind of stress, it's so difficult to eat well. And then sleep well is my second step. It's very difficult. If you're not sleeping well, you for sure aren't going to eat well. And I still believe eat well is the number one step. It's just key. Garbage in equals garbage out. But I'm not so sure that sleep, it may tie with it, because
it's so important,
your body heals when you sleep. If you're not sleeping, you are so inflamed. You're not going to eat. Your stress is going to be worse. You definitely aren't going to poop. You're not going to move your body either. And
so it's like a domino effect,
It's a domino effect. And all of these are connected. And it's rare that everything is in perfect, order up there. But sleeping, and we can get you sleeping. It's real unusual for me to not get somebody sleeping. Maybe you have sleep apnea. That's a big one. Nobody ever asks about snoring. Do you snore? Well, if you snore, you may not have sleep apnea, but you have a 90% chance of having sleep apnea. So
that's a high percentage.
Maybe you're the 10th. Yeah, a friend of mine's a pulmonologist. He taught me that. But your bedroom is for sleep and sex only. There's no TV, no electromagnetic fields, no computers, no clutter. Make your bedroom a sanctuary. My office looks like a mess right now. If this were my bedroom, I would not be able to sleep. Absolutely. Because there's mess everywhere. Your bedroom needs to be a sanctuary. And, we get such anxiety when we cross that threshold into the bedroom at night, because we know we're not going to sleep many times. And, is your mattress, are you sleeping? I hate to tell you this, but if you're sleeping on an electric bed and you have insomnia and sleep issues, well, you might as well be sleeping on 1,000 computers. You're on nothing but an electrical minefield.
Something a lot of people don't know is that too much stress can actually create an abundance of health problems like high blood pressure, high blood sugar, anxiety, migraines, insomnia, even fertility issues. This is because high stress puts your adrenal glands on overload. They release cortisol and adrenaline, which controls your digestion, hormones, immune system, energy, focus, and even your emotional response. So how can you beat stress when you don't know where to start? That's why we have a free 7-day stress reset program. It's designed to help support weight loss, digestive healing, and hormone balancing. It includes support for integrating self-care, daily tips come to you by email and video, gluten-free, dairy-free meal plans, as well as grocery shopping lists, journal pages, and more. This free program will help you beat stress and put you on the path to wholeness in your body. Get your plan now for free at drdani.com.
You know what, Dani? I don't know if I've told you this before, but when I was solving my migraines, one of the things I figured out is that I was sleeping on a flame retardant memory foam mattress. And as I'm like, how did I do this? I'm like, all this knowledge, and I'm sleeping on flame retardants. I threw out the mattress, never slept on it again. And it made such a huge difference. Then of course I had to successfully get those flame retardants out of my body, but people don't realize, right? Like you're saying, what an impact our mattress has. We spend so many hours in our bed in our lifetime.
Yes.
If you think about it, right?
I have no idea. And I never thought about it until, I started doing this work a long time ago, but when I was really researching the Sleep Well chapter, man, you bet. Your bed is key and nobody thinks about it. Nobody thinks about it. And I have an organic mattress. It's not electric and I love it. But I happen to sleep well, but and you can have some supplements. You got to have good sleep hygiene. It is key. It's not. Here's the biggest takeaway that I have gotten about sleep the last 12 years. Mm-hmm. You don't have to sleep all night. We used to have something called segmented sleep or fragmented first and second sleep. This was long before lights, right? Where people would sleep 4 or 5 hours. They'd wake up, they'd have sex, they would cook something. I don't know. They'd read the Bible. I don't know what
whatever they do.
Whatever you do back then when there's no lights. And sex would be the best thing because then you would go back to sleep and sleep really nicely. But anyway, so first and second sleep. So and then they would go back to sleep until they woke up. When I learned about this, when I really dug deep into first and second sleep, I started telling my patients, grace, give yourself grace. It's not how long at one time, it's how you feel when you wake up in the morning. Don't stress over this. And maybe get up. Now, don't turn all the lights on and don't do all that, but give yourself some grace. Maybe get out of the bed, read, whatever, read our books, right? And then go back to sleep. And I can't tell you how many patients have said to me, Dani, that was the game changer. Because I've always been told, and I told patients for years, we need to sleep all night. Well, when I went through menopause, I stopped sleeping all night. I sleep good, but I wake up multiple times. And I go right back to sleep. I don't care. I go right back to sleep. I don't get up. So
part of the cycle, because I have this in my book, and I also wrote a book on insomnia solutions and mentioned this concept too. And I think that sometimes what happens is we get anxiety. You mentioned if you get anxiety about not being able to sleep, and then you wake up in the night, and then the anxiety starts, and then now you've got a stress response about not being able to sleep, and then you're definitely not going to be able to sleep because you're stressing about it. So just if we can say, hey, just relax about it. It's okay if you wake up, read a little bit, you're probably going to fall back to sleep. Sometimes that's all it takes is eliminate the stress response to not sleeping.
That's right. Dr. Doni Lodog was the first doctor I ever heard speak on this. And she said, I get up every night for a few hours and I make tea and I read or I do whatever. And she said, then I go back to sleep. And I was like, what in the world? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And then I started really reading about it. And so that's right. And the anxiety that comes from that is horrible. And then you're not going to eat well the next day because you wake up depleted and you're just drinking coffee and you're eating carbs and sugar and everything. So, eating well, sleep well, move well. Your body is designed to move. And I tell patients every day, I don't care what you do. Jack LaLanne, who was, older than me, but I remember Jack LaLanne. He was the guru, godfather of all of this. He didn't do anything fancy. He did sit-ups, jumping jacks, push-ups. He used his own body weight. I don't care if you ballroom dance, hula hoop, which is one of my favorites, rollerblade, skate. I don't care. Just move your body. It's as simple as that. And if you can't go to the gym or if you can't, then you do it in your house. I'm brushing my teeth and I'm trying to do 10 squats and I'm like got something cooking. Maybe I'll do 5 push-ups. Just move your body. When you move better, you sleep better and you eat better. And, I know there's guidelines for exercise and all. And if you have osteoporosis and osteopenia, you need to follow that. You need to lift your weights, do your weight-bearing exercises and things, but let's get you moving. You will feel better when you move your body. Simple as that.
It's all about individualizing it, like you're saying, And instead of it being another thing to stress about, if we make it fun,
Yes.
you're saying pick something that you know you're going to enjoy, and it doesn't have to be hours and hours. It could be a short little bit. Like you're saying, do 10 squats. Doesn't have to, that counts.
You bet it counts. And if you find a buddy, like say you and I live in the same neighborhood, I said, we're going to meet every morning or whatever, 4 days a week, and we're going to walk at 6 a.m. I guarantee you're going to get up and go meet your friend because you don't want to leave her on the side of the street waiting for you in the cold and the heat and all of that. Find a buddy, sign up for a 5K. You don't have to run it, but sign up for it and maybe you'll walk it. If you pay for something and do it, you're more likely to get, I don't know, you just feel better. You have a better sex drive. Your endorphins are better. You just feel better when you move. And so, but it's hard to do if you're not eating well and sleeping well. And then you got to move well. And then you need to poop well. That's my 4th step. I'm a big believer in pooping. Of course, I spent my entire life in just the worst situation ever. And if you don't poop, just think about it, how backed up you are and the toxins in there and you don't feel well. And, there's so many ways. I have patients every day say, well, I only poop, once or twice a week. And my doctor says, that's fine. You need a new doctor. Yeah. That is not fine. I have a poodle that is sitting right over here, a 12-month-old standard poodle. I always tell him, you need to poop like that poodle right there. He eats, he goes and poops, so and he loves it. And I know one girl said, you need a bumper sticker that says poop
I
like
love that.
Poodle.
That's so
but
cute.
It's true.
It's the first thing if a patient says to me they're not having a bowel movement every day or twice a day, that's the top of my list. Right? Yes. Like that's the first thing before anything else. We have to get the bowels moving because like you're saying, how do you have to get, if it's sitting there, the toxins are being reabsorbed and recirculated.
Yes.
It needs to move out. And if it's not moving, then you're going to get bloated. You're going to get overgrowing bacteria. You're going to have leaky gut. It just spins the whole circle. So we have to break that pattern right away.
That's right. And it's just like having diarrhea like I had for so many years. It's the same thing. You're going to just eliminate so fast. You don't absorb any of the nutrients and you're, malnourished. I know Kevin Ellis, the bone coach, who, he says it's not what you eat, it's what you absorb. And that's true. And so, get a squatty potty, get your feet elevated. You don't have to have a squatty potty. Put your feet on your poodle. I don't care, whatever. Get your feet up when you go to the bathroom. It makes such a huge difference. I didn't know about a squatty potty. No, I keep one in the office and I have patients. I show them.
People know what it is. Yeah.
You bet. And we have it in every bathroom in our office. We have a squatty potty. So, so you got to eliminate. You have to eliminate. And we can get that dehydration. Most people are living on, there's coffee in here or caffeine or something. They're dehydrated.
Instead of water.
If you would just drink the proper amount of water for your weight, which for me, I tell people half your body weight in ounces, and then more if you drink coffee, more if you sweat, you might just start having a bowel movement if you just were hydrated.
Yeah. So sometimes it's starting with these simple things, right? Like in
common sense.
And I'm hoping that because when you're mentioning a lot of little tweaks people can make, I'm hoping everybody listening is going, oh, I got this, but this thing that Dani and Doni mentioned, that's what I need to pay attention to. Like, look for because it's not about, I don't want people to walk away like with a long to-do list that's overwhelming. The thing is, it's not about, you don't have to implement, it's not meant to be another stress in your life. It's meant to be, let me identify the things I can tweak and fine tune and know that that's what our life is. It's not about you fix it all and then that's the end. This is what you and I both, right? We know and we believe that this is what we do each day. You and I'm sure you constantly each day will tweak something and say, yes, how do I do this a little differently? So this is a constant process of fine tuning these activities and lifestyle habits. It's a constant process every day. So please, if you're like, oh my gosh, where do I begin? You just begin with the smallest little thing.
One thing. That's right. That's exactly right. Don't let it overwhelm you, but it is a lifestyle. Eventually it's your lifestyle, eventually, I got to have an elimination diet and I got to do, eventually it's your lifestyle. Once you begin to heal the gut and start to feel better and have some energy, then you start incorporating all of these things. And what you were talking about, we were throwing out all these little pearls. The back of every single chapter in the book has my prescription pad for that chapter. Like,
I love it.
Poop well. And it talks, get something to put your feet on. That's easy. That's one step. Maybe that's all you needed, right? Talks about exercise, talks about water, just one little thing, over and over. You can't do it all at once, but eventually it becomes your lifestyle and you're never going back. So you got to eat well, sleep well, move well, poop well, de-stress well, which we already talked about. We can't pour from an empty vessel. We are a nation of empty vessels. Mm-hmm. If anything, the last 3 years has taught us is that we are a nation of empty vessels. And I'm on the board for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and phone calls to suicide crisis lines went up 800% since the pandemic. 800%.
Oh my God.
And suicide is near and dear to my heart because of my family and myself. And the fastest growing rate of suicide is age 10 to 24. Inside that segment, 10 to 13. 13. These are babies that are dying by suicide. So this isn't just our children just adults that we need to learn to de-stress well. We have to focus on these children.
It's absolutely true.
And for sure, our genetics, my kids are half my genetics, and I had all kinds of mess going on in my life, like generational trauma. And that they were born into that, no fault to them. So the de-stress well, we covered fairly well, and then commune well. Yeah. I'm a big believer in community, and if you may or may not believe in Jesus, some people do, some people don't. I do. He knew community. He knew community was key. Buddha also knew. They all knew it's community. Yeah. But, for Jesus, he had 12 tribe members around him. You don't have to have 12. They were flawed, just like us. Good Lord, they betrayed him. They did all kinds of things to him. They're just a mess, that tribe. But community is key. You don't need a group. You may only need one or two people. But when you are with your people, when you're with your tribe, whether it's a couple or a whole group, your inflammation goes down because you're laughing and you're carrying on. And the research is clear. The inflammatory response goes down when you laugh. Your cortisol levels go down when you laugh, when you're with your people, just the energy of your tribe. We are not designed to live alone in social isolation.
I was reading this study the other day about loneliness and how the rates of loneliness have increased, and how when we're alone or lonely, it increases our rate of health issues and decreases. You were talking before about decreasing longevity of your life just from being alone. And it's true, as humans, I understand, like sometimes when you've had a traumatic past, it's scary to interact with other humans. And so we sometimes default to being alone, or other circumstances we're alone. Here you and I are talking about being single moms. Sometimes there is aloneness that occurs, and there's ways to also look at how to be okay with loving yourself. Of course, that can be helpful when you're needing to spend time alone. But like you're saying, also there's ways to find a community, even if it's online, even if it's from a distance, but having that sense of community with like-minded other individuals who are loving and supportive, it's essential for our health.
You bet it is. And maybe your neighborhood during COVID, it was interesting. I have a good little neighborhood. We all like each other. We wave at each other for years. We'd never really been at each other's houses and stuff. We're all busy. During COVID, I said, let's start a neighborhood cookout. And nobody really knew anybody. We knew each other, but we didn't know each other. Every Saturday during COVID in my front yard, and it was a lot of work for me. And I learned how to grill. I learned how to grill on charcoal. I have not lit a gas grill in over 3 years now, because I learned about charcoal cooking with my tribe, every house in this community here. And then it is unbelievable. Somebody's got to be a ringleader. So then we all learned about each other. And when I don't do it, guess what happens? There's no cookout because but they love it when I do it. And it is so amazing because now we know our neighbors. And one of us just passed away last month. And he's the one who taught me how to grill, and it makes me so emotional because so they gave me his grill, his charcoal grill. Yes. And that's the power of community.
Yeah.
And we look forward to it every single weekend, but you got to find your tribe, and it's no big deal. You just bring them over to your house, or you go meet up at the park, or you go have coffee. It's key. And the research is clear. And look at the nursing homes. The last couple of years, my mom's in assisted living. She has Alzheimer's, completely went downhill. I mean, completely. I mean, she uses a walker now. She's incontinent, and she was none of that before they were put in isolation.
Isolation, that's the thing. Isolation, right? And it's looking back at the pandemic. I that was one of just knowing all of this research. I was so afraid, and I want to go back to something you mentioned, which is the children. I'm seeing a huge increase in the number of my patients who are coming to see me. Increasing number of them are parents bringing in their children of various ages, including teenagers, because we're seeing that the effects of stress, not just from the pandemic, but just from the things we've been talking about, are affecting them at a younger ages. And it's very scary. I think that's why those suicide numbers are going up, because the diet is not what it needs to be. They're not getting sleep. They're not getting stress recovery in their day-to-day. Their schedules are so packed with activities and stress. And so I think that's why we're seeing that. But I agree with you. I want to bring attention to, we need to be helping. Anyone listening, if you're an adult and you have children, like what you do with like you said before, Dani, we're the models. We can model for our families. And sometimes that feels overwhelming. How are we going to shift our diet for our whole households? But if you just start with little steps and start explaining what you're noticing and what you're observing, you'll be amazed at what kind of change you can create in your life and in your household in a relatively short period of time.
You bet. And you know what I tell women every day is I love JJ Virgin's cookbook just because it's 150 recipes. She wrote it. And I say this every day, all day. She wrote it as a single mom like me. She had 2 teenage boys. These recipes are fast, quick, easy. You'll never know. There's no gluten, dairy, soy, corn, sugar, eggs, peanuts. You won't. I mean, the recipes are fed. We eat the food. And I tell these ladies, and they're like, oh my gosh, Dani, no, I say, as you run out of the bad food or the inflammatory food in your house, the processed package, just don't bring it back in. Take the time to find one new thing. These kids and they'll say, well, they won't eat anything, Dani, but this, that. I said, well, who's buying it? Are they Ubering out? Is that 10-year-old getting in the Uber and going to Kroger and spending their allowance for this food? Who's bringing the food in? And I'm like, well, I am, or my husband, maybe whatever. And I said, well, then don't do it. Yeah. Don't bring it in, because if it's in my house, guess what? I'm going to eat it. I am. Yeah. And so baby steps as you run out of things new, and then get the kids involved. If you have kids big enough to read it, this is not a cookbook, it's my book. But if they got a cookbook and they're big enough to read it, find a Mediterranean cookbook or a JJ. Yeah. And you have them go through there and pick out, tell them, say, I'm tired of feeding the same food over and over. I want 5 new recipes. They will never realize there's no gluten or dairy. They won't. They'll just look at the pictures and say, that's what I want right there. Get the kids involved. The research is real easy. I mean, it's real clear. Kids want to be in the kitchen. And I as a single mom, was so stressed. I didn't want my kids in the kitchen. It was too much of a hassle, and it slowed me down, and I had no margin. Mm-hmm. So there was no margin.
Right. You're going to get overwhelmed too quickly. Yeah.
And in hindsight, that was not the best decision. Now I have one kid in medical school, 2nd year medical school, who is a rock star, learning all the things and eats well. And another one, just the total opposite. But get the family involved. If you've got picky eaters, then hand them the cookbook and say, pick us out new. I don't care what we eat. I just want new foods, but don't tell them you're phasing out maybe gluten and maybe dairy, because I'm telling you, gluten, dairy, sugar are in everything fake and processed. And if you cut those 3 foods out,
yeah, I agree.
You see a world of change. And eggs are the number 2 food allergy for children in the United States. Eggs, they're the perfect protein. I had no money. I fed my kids so many eggs. Me too. But when I cut eggs out, my hands stopped hurting.
It's a very common. I see it all the time.
Me too.
Egg sensitivity. And oh my gosh, you and I could keep talking.
I know.
Because and this is I'm hoping everyone listening is like, wow, this is really at least motivating to keep doing what you're doing, to keep on working on improving, just finding new ways to implement this, because it's going to make a difference for you and your family. And you showed your book, the Wild and Well book there. I love the name of that. So everybody can get that from Amazon and other bookstores. If just as have more ideas and your prescriptions of how to implement. But tell us if there's anything else you wanted to share.
Well, the one thing I just want your tribe to know, that you're not broken. You need to know that, and you need to understand that. Dr. Dani and I both work with the sickest of the sickest, right? They come in, they don't feel well. They don't come to us for kicks and giggles. And you just have to know that you were not born broken, and you are not broken. And we are living proof that you can turn around, turn off, or at least put it so under the radar. I mean, I still have lupus, but I have no symptoms of lupus, but my antibodies are still there, but I don't hurt, or I don't have the symptoms. You can do anything. You were designed, your body was designed to heal itself, but give it what it needs. And it takes hard work and consistency. And I'm living proof that you can do it. If a little kid, I'm not little kid anymore, but if a gal from Gilbertsville, Kentucky, who grew up with a lot of stress can reverse this, anybody can. And that's why I wrote the book, that we got a lot of hope, but you got to have a strategy. And I tried to break it down into common sense steps for reversing decades of chronic disease and hopefully changing the entire trajectory of your family's life and the generational changes. If you don't do it for you, then do it for the kids and the grandkids, because you're going to change the entire trajectory of their life. And to me, that's exciting.
Yeah, that gives me goosebumps every time I think about that too. We have this potential for influence that really has a ripple effect, and that's not for that to be overwhelming, but for that to be inspiring. And thank you so much, because your story and what you do is inspiring to say, hey, these are, it does take diligence, but it's possible and it's worth it. And
yes,
so wherever you're starting from, whatever age you are, whatever situation you're in, these are things that can make a difference, and we're here to help you, right? So if you want to be in touch with you, Dani, and I'll share, of course, here with the notes, your website and your book. And is there any, I know you also, I love your cooking videos you share, because you're showing this is how easy it is to make healthy food in your kitchen. So I love
a lot of just one ingredient cooking videos with me holding this phone, right? Just right there. Or, it's propped on something and then it falls over in the pot. Oh, good gosh. But again, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it's all the same. Dani Williamson Wellness. And I try to just keep it real, because this is real life, and the majority of us are just real humans, aren't we? We're all just trying to get by, and none of us are perfect. And so, just keep it simple in the kitchen. There's not much olive oil, salt and pepper won't make taste pretty good. And you don't have to go crazy. I don't.
I try to, as a thing, keep it simple. Then you're not stressing yourself in the process. You're just emphasizing good, healthy foods and getting your protein, right? And then it's like you're feeding yourself what you need without overwhelming it. It doesn't have to be complicated.
No, it doesn't. So that's it. That's all I want them to know. I appreciate you, all you're doing out there for the tribe and for the world. And you're just a rock star. And I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. I'm so glad we got to have this talk, and I look forward to staying in touch and talking again soon.
Thanks for listening to How Humans Heal. If you liked this episode, leave a rating and a review. And for more resources, visit drdani.com.